Now let's get started with the Sendbird Code Cafe, a hands-on workshop for building chat. Here's a peek into what we'll be doing today. We'll be building chat in a dating app. You learn how to build chat channels, channel lists, chat threads, rich chat features, and so much more with the Sendbird UI Kit. The Sendbird platform has so much to offer, from essential messaging services to advanced messaging to moderation, analytics, and large-scale chats. We've highlighted a few features in purple. These are some of the features that Alex will be showing you in today's workshop.
My name is Alex Preston. Let me share my screen real quick. That way you guys can see what I'm doing here today. And as Ron had mentioned, I'm a solutions engineer here at Sendbird. Are you guys seeing the correct screen? I assume so. And as I said, I'm a solutions engineer here at Sendbird. And today I'm going to be walking you guys through a couple of things. First, we'll give you kind of a little bit of an overview of the dashboard, how that works, how you can do some sample things like creating users. Then we're going to kind of move into showing how easy it is to integrate chat. And that's kind of like the first portion. And we'll spend probably about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter, just depends on how much talking we do and if anyone has questions at the time, where we'll just kind of show you how you can integrate chat into an existing application. And as I said, that won't take super long. And then what we're going to do at the very end is we're going to kind of tailor that chat that we've already created and implement it into the specific vertical that we chose for today. And that was dating. That's a strong highlighted a lot of use cases and a lot of verticals that our customers use, and dating is a very popular one. And we figured that'd be a fun way to show you guys how easy it is to integrate chat into that. So what we're going to do today, and I just kind of want to give you a little bit of a run through of the final product. I have two different emulators here, and I hope if you guys didn't, or you did get the time, sorry. I hope if you guys got the time, you guys went and checked out the hands-on lab repo that you guys should have gotten before this. If you have not, if Sarang or someone else could send that in the chat just so everyone can follow along, that would be awesome. But this is the repo that we're going to follow along with. If you guys want to follow along and implement the code as we go, please make sure you check out the other branch. The default branch or the master branch is that's the finished product, and the other one denoted as starter project is the one that we're going to be going through and filling in code as we go. So yeah, if you haven't, please feel free to check this out. It kind of gives you an overview of what we're going to be doing today. And then if you follow along and you miss any steps, the code is outlined there. But anyways, so let's actually go back in before we dive into any of the code or talk about the dashboard or anything like that. Let's take a moment and go ahead and just show you the final product, as that's probably a good starting point. So you can see right here, you have the generic information page about me. Obviously, you probably customize this however you want. For the sake of this, we just simply included some about me information, my profile image, and my name. Over here, we have a generic card view that you see if you've downloaded any dating app. You've probably seen some sort of similar user experience that corresponds to simply liking an individual and creating a conversation. Obviously, we didn't do any fancy footwork to create an algorithm for matching to make sure that both parties are matched. If you guys want to explore that, I assume that's more for your own vertical. But as you can see right here, I've now launched and I've been able to launch chat with Zoe. I liked her on the match list, and then I went ahead and initiated a conversation with her. So let's go ahead and send a quick message. So that's essentially what, in a nutshell, what we're going to do. And what you're going to see when we actually go through this whole project is all of this stuff will be empty. The general paging through the fragments will exist, but the actual UI for this, and for this will actually be what we're going to be building out today. But to show you a little bit about the UI kit, in case you guys are unfamiliar, you're brand new to Sendbird, and you have no context on what the UI kit is, I'll spend the next 5-ish or so minutes kind of walking through some of the feature set. The UI kit is, after a lot of customer demands, we developed a fully customizable and integratable UI kit that can be launched incredibly easy. Takes no more than, as I said, we'll do this in about 10 to 15 minutes. But essentially, it builds out the feature set of handling things of like this, your generic channel list. So that way you can see previous conversations or create new conversations in this different mode. And you can customize that as you go. Things that are built out and by default, the ability to turn off notifications, leave the channel by just long pressing on the individual item on the recycler view. Or if you go into the channel, you have the ability to easily send messages. And as you see right here, the message was delivered at 7:13 a.m. And well, Zoe, the message was sent successfully at 7:13 a.m. And I'll show you a little bit more about the feature set. Actually, I'll do it right now. So if I go over here and log in as Zoe and sign in and go over here, you'll notice I have things. Another thing that is nicely built out is like things like unread counts. So you can see that my conversation with Alex, who I'm over here, has one unread notification. So I enter into this channel, you immediately see that the read count is automatically updated and taken care of for you. If Zoe wants to go ahead and react on an individual message I have sent, she can go ahead and do that. For any of those who are wondering, just generically, you can customize this list of reactions however you want by just uploading a generic list like this, or you can have as customizable of emoticons or emojis as you want. Just kind of a nice feature set that's kind of built out by default. Things generically that are built out are things like file messages, being able to launch the camera activity, take a picture, and then go ahead and send the individual message in the context of the group messages is automatically handled and automatically done. And the user can easily go and view the photo, download the photo, and do whatever they want. And the nice thing about this is this kind of historically within Sendbird, you kind of had to implement all this stuff on your own. If you use the core SDK, what you'd have to do is probably something along the lines of implementing the UI, having a recycler view and different custom items and your recycler view adapter to handle the different types of messages or all things like that. And the UI kit nicely kind of extrapolates away from that, where if you do want to implement your own custom view type in your recycler view adapter, you can go crazy. But if you don't, you can just kind of trust Sendbird generically out of the box to kind of build out this chat experience for you. Other things that are kind of generically handled are permissions. So like I said, when you launch the dialog here for sending photos, file messages, all this kind of stuff, all taken care of for you, as well as built out auto thumbnail generation, as you can see here. Generically here on channel information, and again, I want to reiterate, all this stuff is completely customizable. If you want to change any of the UI components here, that's something that you can easily do. And I'll kind of talk about that at a little bit at the very end, where I'll kind of talk about a little bit about the extensibility of the UI kit, where you can, if you want to literally stop at like the one line of code it takes to launch the UI kit, you can. If you don't, you can go crazy and customize as much as you want, which is, again, the truly wonderful thing about the UI kit. But as I said right here, you have things being able to mute notifications from an individual if you don't want to be spammed or bothered by them. You can easily check channel list or member list, and there's also customization to invite additional members, and then simply leave channels, as well as customizing the individual channel. So that's kind of a brief overview of the UI kit, of what we're going to kind of be accomplishing today. So as I said, we're pretty much just building out chat into a shell dating application. And you'll kind of see how easy it is, and hopefully you can take the knowledge that you kind of learned today and implement it in your own project to easily showcase to PMs or whoever you need to showcase how easy and wonderful Sendbird is to use. So let's actually go into the code, and this is the completed code. But let's go back into our shell application. And I'm going to go ahead and probably get rid of this for now, just so it's not distracting. But actually, before we get into any code, let's go ahead and take a quick step back and go to our dashboard. If you guys took the time, I believe we sent out an email about signing up for the dashboard. If you guys have not done that, I really encourage you to do so. Essentially, what you'll do is you'll see this page on dashboard.sendbird.com, and you're going to want to obviously choose sign up. I obviously already have my own account that I created for this lab. And I'm going to go ahead and log in, and you'll see our generic organization overview, which gives you some generic metrics, expiration date, what kind of plan you're on, how you can get support. But then I'm going to go ahead and click into our application. And the only thing I really want to draw your attention to on this page is the application ID. Some of this other stuff probably will make more sense to you as you get going and developing within Sendbird, but for now, the only thing that we really care about is this app ID. And I'll talk a little bit about that more in a bit. It's essentially just, I guess I'll talk about it now. It's essentially just how the SDK we initialize knows which Sendbird application it belongs to. So that didn't really take a whole lot of explanation. But let's go into the users tab. So this is what we're going to need to do now. If you noticed on the, one second. Oh, duh. So if you go over here and you notice on the getting started README that I attached to the project, there's a couple of default profile URLs that you have right here. You'll notice they just generically launch images. I'm just gonna go ahead and copy one. And let's go ahead and just create a couple of users. Generally, our developers will create users via the platform API just because there's added level of customization. You can still issue access tokens and session tokens from here, or access tokens from here. But in general, our customers like to have a lot of flexibility by being able to add things like metadata or additional data onto an individual user. So let's call this person Jenna Cap, and go ahead and just throw in that profile URL there. And if you guys could just spend the next couple of minutes go ahead and creating a couple of users, that might be ideal, just so that way when you are creating your own project, you'll actually have users to swipe left and right on, or else it's going to be an empty shell of a project, and that will not be very fun for anyone. So if you guys want to spend the next minute or so doing that, that would be probably a good idea. And if any one of you guys have any questions and you want to shoot me messages to the chat, this is probably a good time to ask Nicholas or Roland or Sarang or whoever you guys want to ask questions about. Might be a good pausing point to ask a couple of questions, but probably just take the next 20 seconds or so to let you guys go ahead and create a couple of users, and I'll just go ahead and create another one myself. I'm really bad at coming up with names. Okay, so hopefully you guys have gone ahead and created a couple of users. If you haven't and you're just following along, totally fine. But let's actually go ahead and kind of dive into the code. And to give quick context on, again, to reiterate what we're going to be doing in this next section, we're going to spend the next about 10 to 15 minutes building out the actual chat portion of this application. So as you see right here, we have just a generic UI, and some of the more base UIs already been built out by me. You can critique or praise my UI skills all you want in the chat. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and start on actually implementing chat. And you'll see that we're going to implement chat, but there's going to be no dating functionality. And this is just to showcase that if you don't want to customize it to a dating experience, you don't have to. If you guys have different verticals, then this actually might be a good stopping point at the end of when we implement this for yourself. So let's go ahead and start. And so the first thing that we're going to need to make sure that we do is we're going to need to go into the project level Gradle file, or the app level Gradle file. Not the project level Gradle file. And you're going to want to make sure you add the implementation for the Sendbird UI Kit. Most recent version is 1.1.3. The nice thing about the UI Kit is we have entire teams dedicated to improving our React, iOS, and Android UI kits, and they're constantly iterating, constantly releasing new features on a very regular cadence, kind of in tandem with our core SDK releases. So this is a very widely developed project within Sendbird. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and add the SDK to the project. From there, let's go ahead and go into the base application. I'm sure you guys probably have something similar in your own applications. It's just on app start. This will handle any initializations. For now, we only really have Sendbird. To kind of walk through this, there's four real main functions, or four real main things that you need to do to get started with the Sendbird UI Kit, and that's add the SDK, initialize the SDK, connect the SDK, and then launch the actual UI Kit. So if you could boil down the entirety of what you're going to learn today, it's pretty much those 4 steps. The 5th step would be customize. So if you go in here, I'm just going to talk about these methods from kind of a higher level. So the initialization of the UI kit essentially just takes an adapter and a context. This adapter, you need to make sure that you're returning the appropriate variables. For app ID, we're going to need to go to the dashboard. And we're going to want to take this and again, if you guys missed that, it's right here on your application ID. Just go ahead and copy that. And then what you're going to want to do is just throw that in here. So that way your initialization has knowledge of which Sendbird project to initialize. A couple other things, access tokens. This is for user authentication. As I said, a lot of our customers like to create via the platform API as opposed to via the SDK because it adds the extra layer of security of allowing you to either get an access or a session token. User info is just generically the user ID and the nickname is passed. And the profile URL, you don't need to set that again because we already set that when we created the users. So as you can see right here, we have 2 generic methods to set this, and we'll talk about that in the next step, which is going into the login activity. So the login activity is the 3rd step that I was kind of mentioning. It's essentially just connecting Sendbird to an individual user. So let's go ahead, and for the sake of not having to write out all the code and being here a lot longer than I think any of you guys want to be, I'm not going to write out the code. I'm just going to copy and paste it. Just to give you a high level what this code does, quick sanitization to make sure that the UI or the inputted strings are correct or not containing empty spaces or anything like that. Obviously, right here, as you saw those 2 methods I talked about, we are setting the user ID. The dialogues, there's a lot of different customization, or not customization, nice little features that Sendbird built out that just kind of make the whole chat experience a little bit easier, a little bit more user-friendly. So things like progress indicators or dialogues, Sendbird built out the functionality for that, so you just have to call show and then dismiss. You can customize the look and feel of that. You'll notice it's purple in tandem with Sendbird's colors. And then simply right here, we have the connect method. And the connect method is just going to take the past information that we set here in the init method. Well, not technically in the init method, but it's going to connect that user and then return that user if it's successful, return an error if it was not. As you can see right here, we did some error handling, probably not the best, but it works. And then right here, we are going to go ahead and launch the main activity. So let's go into the main activity, as that's the next place that we're going to go. And this will be honestly step 4. This will be probably the easiest part of the UI kit is handling step 4, which is essentially just launching the UI kit. So what we're going to do for the launching of the individual UI kit is we're going to go ahead and add fraglist.add, and we're going to add get chat fragment. So for the sake of making it cleaner so you guys can see that, I added a method down here to get the fragment. As I had mentioned earlier, we had taken this project from kind of an existing empty shell dating application, and the design pattern they went with is using view pager adapter to swipe in and out fragments to change the views. So we're going to actually launch the UI kit from a fragment, as opposed to, if you guys watch the webinar or our documentation online, shows that you can launch it from an activity. I know there's a lot of debate about which is better, using activities or fragments, or whether people even use fragments. But for the sake of today, we're going to actually kind of showcase just launching it from a fragment. But just rest assured, launching it from an activity is just as easy. So anyways, let's go down here to this get chat fragment. And essentially what we're going to need to do here is we're going to go ahead and create a builder. And this will be a channel list builder here. And essentially what we're going to do, what's called fragment, is we're going to go ahead and just create, we're just going to set one thing real quick. Set use header. So if we do this little line up here, so what this is doing is this building the fragment for the channel list fragment. And there's a lot of customization, and we'll talk about some of that customization that you can do on this individual builder. Essentially what we're doing is just specifying the use of the header, as it's by default false, I believe. And then we're just going to go ahead and return, we're going to return fragment dot build. So let's go ahead and just take a quick pause and kind of rerun our application to see what we've done so far. I probably should have stopped a second ago to showcase the actual login flow, but I kind of got ahead of myself. So if I go ahead and log in again, you'll notice that the login flow is now working again, which is what we set here. So when we log in, it now launches, but we have generic information here. So there's nothing here, absolutely nothing here because we haven't built out that implementation. But if you go over here, you'll notice that we now have the actual chat. So we built out the first portion of this, which was setting and launching the actual chat via the UI kit. You notice it's probably a little bit different looking than what we had previously. This is just because this is the generic look and feel of the UI kit. The biggest difference is it's a back button. This is generally used for if you're launching it from an activity and you want to return to the previous activity you did. All of this, again, is customizable. You can individually choose to remove different elements. You can set on-click listeners to change where these individuals go. For this right here, obviously, this is just going to launch the ability to go ahead and start a conversation with an individual. And you can see that the whole chat experience that we talked about at the very beginning is now done. We've done essentially everything that we needed to do in the context of Sendbird to launch chat. And I think that's a really cool point, and I kind of want to use this as a stopping point. And after I'm done giving my little spiel, be probably a good point to make sure that everyone's kind of caught up. If anyone has additional questions, maybe we can just kind of look and answer some of those right now. But essentially, we built out the entirety of chat with essentially this line of code right here. This channel list fragment builder build essentially just built out the entirety of the chat experience. And historically, what you kind of have to do within Sendbird was frankly a lot. It's not necessarily difficult, but building out chat to get the full featured experience is kind of a lot of work because you have to make sure you handle things like setting handlers on the individual channel to make sure that you're getting things like typing indicators, which are by default built out for this. Or you have to handle this dialogue here to launch this, to be able to launch the camera activity or launch a camera intent, or if you need to get files from local files. I mean, all that stuff is kind of just by default built out. And as I said, it's done with pretty much one line of code, barring the initialization and the connection of Sendbird. And so the nice thing that we're really excited about and really proud of is if you want to stop and turn off the Zoom and be done with this whole project, you can. I mean, that's literally, you can take what you've learned here and throw this into your application, and in no time at all, you can have chat built out like you see here with very little effort. And again, like all the handlers for like updating things, I mean, event handlers, all that kind of stuff is just by default built out for you. And so I kind of want to probably take a moment to pause real quick right here if you guys have any questions or missed something or want me to explain something a little bit more. It might be a beneficial time. I'll probably pull up the chat right now. So yeah, we'll take a quick little moment right now, just kind of pause and see if there's any like specific implementation questions right now. I think there's some general questions about rolling out updates, push notifications, all things like that. If you notice a part of the README, I've also attached a section on push notifications. So it will kind of show you how you can implement push notifications within the context of this. Not an overly difficult experience, but for the sake of time, we're not going to show you how to implement push notifications in this lab. So unless anyone has any specific implementation questions, it might be a beneficial time to kind of move on to the second portion of this. So we built out chat into an empty shell application. Now let's kind of go a step further and do what we originally set out to do and build a dating application. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to go ahead and first, let's go ahead and create this account right here and make sure that we have this information here. So let's go into our account fragment. And we're just going to generically set a little bit of information. I just used glide for it. But for adding the information, we just had a couple of different UI components, and we're just going to go ahead and just set the user info, the username, and then we used glide to load in the profile image. And so when we rerun the application, You will note that we now have the nice UI that we had at the very beginning for the account fragment. That's obviously probably the easiest thing is you're just able to get the individual objects. The next thing we're going to need to do is build out this fragment here, which is the swiping, the activity or the fragment that handles paging through the individual users. So let's go ahead and do this. And this is kind of something I want to highlight is being able to extend and use the core SDK in tandem with the UI kit, because there might be some use cases that you guys find where you don't want to be, in essence, you don't want to create channels, or you don't want to, like I said, like, so when we're right here, you have the ability to launch and create conversations via this way. But obviously we're not going to want to do that within the context of Sendbird. Like that doesn't make sense for a user just to be able to initiate conversations with anyone that's within the dating application, because maybe they haven't matched with them or something like that. So you want to remove that ability. So if you want to remove that ability, we can just go back into here and just set this header here to false. And again, like I said, if you guys wanted to remove one icon or multiple icons, you can do that. If you want to implement your own click listeners, you could do that, which is a nice part about the customization. And this is, you'll notice right here when we go back in, obviously it's now back to that look and feel that we had at the very beginning, which is really nice and really easy. But let's go back in, before I get too distracted, let's go back into, we're gonna go to the swipe view fragment. And this is where we're gonna kind of handle the logic to get the list of users from Sendbird and then populate them into this adapter here for this swipe view. So let's go and go ahead and take, what we're gonna first do is this, as I said, like we're gonna utilize a little bit of the core SDK and leverage the flexibility you have there with being able to do different things. Because as I said, we don't want to launch the generic dialog to invite users. We actually just want to have our own flow. So what we've done here is we've just generically created a user application list query. And essentially what this does is I specified metadata. So when I created my users, I did it the way our developers would do. I created most of my users via the platform API, and I specified some generic metadata onto my individual user objects, such as are they dating, or male or female, or whatever. And you can set filters on how you want to filter that kind of stuff. And then essentially I just ran a query to return the list of users based on that query that I created. And then essentially I'm just adding and creating these dating cards and adding them to this swipe view. So now what we've done so far is we've added account information. We've added the ability to chat into existing conversations. Now what we've done is go ahead and actually add the ability to pull the users from Sendbird and populate all of these, individuals. And then you have things like here, you can launch different conversations. Obviously now we need to go ahead and set the on-click listeners, or else no actions will actually end up happening as a result of us clicking the heart button or anything like that. So let's go ahead and add that. And essentially all this is doing is this is creating a channel with the individual past information. So I need to go ahead and implement this method down here for create channel with a match. And let's go ahead and do that real quick. And as you can see right here, all this does is just creating a distinct channel, which within Sendbird, you could have the ability to create distinct or not distinct channels, which essentially means that if a person initiates conversation with that individual again at a later date, do you want to reuse the same chat that they had so that existing messages will exist? Or if you don't set it to distinct, it'll just create different channels every single time with that user. So you won't be able to reuse the same channels when you do channel creation. But essentially, we're just going to create an empty channel. So now when we go ahead and launch this application, we will showcase that, okay, so we now have the ability to Let me log in here real quick. We now have the ability to swipe right on these individuals, and we've created conversations, but nothing's actually updating over here. And this is, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but this is a part of the customization now. So we've implemented our own chat builder fragment. Now we obviously need to query individual chats or recently created chat information. So let's go back to our main activity, and we're going to go ahead and just create a generic group channel query. And then we're going to, on this individual builder here, we're going to set the query actually here. And so once you see right here, and we call builder.build, you'll notice that all the existing conversations that maybe we swiped on are now populated. Apologies for the horn. So when we log back in, we now go back to here. We have that conversation with Melody now, and we can go ahead and initiate a conversation with this individual. And essentially what we've done is we've gone ahead and built out the entirety of chat. I'm sorry for reusing the same images and stuff like that. But essentially we've done and set out everything that we wanted to do. We went ahead and added custom information on the account information page. We added the ability to get a list of users, create cards, and then ultimately create a bunch of empty channels that we can now conversate with people. And then we also added the entirety of the UI kit where I now launched it, and I now have a fully built out, fully robust chat experience. So this is kind of a good stopping point before we begin a little bit on the next section where I'll talk a little bit more about more customization that you can do within Sendbird, because this is what we set out to do. We wanted to build a dating application that was simple, bare bones, straightforward, but looks good. And it didn't take us barely any time at all. This next portion I kind of want to do is talk about more customization, because a lot of questions that I've been asked and that come up a lot is being able to go beyond a little bit more. Can I change this view? Or if I'm in the channel activity, can I implement my own recycler view adapter and have my own custom item view types so that, maybe I'm sending a specific custom message that's particular to my company's own use case? And the answer to that is yes, you can. And I'll show you a little bit more about how you can do that from a higher level. To dive into that would take way too much time, but I will give you all the tools. And especially if you dig around in this project, I've built out a lot of stuff for you to showcase how easy it is to use all this kind of stuff. So what we have here is, you probably notice there's a couple of activities and fragments here that we haven't talked about at all that are obviously here. The custom channel activities. So if you want to actually implement your own code to your own custom activities, your own custom fragments, you have to do something down here. So right now it's just generically launching the UI kit as is. There's no custom channel list fragment or a channel list activity. There's no custom channel activity or custom channel settings activity, to just to name a few. What we're going to go down here and do is we're just going to create a quick intent, and we're going to launch this. We're going to launch a custom channel activity, new intent from new custom activity. And essentially what this will do is, instead of using the generic channel activity, it's going to launch this custom channel activity. And to not forget, we need to make sure we set the on item click listener and show custom channel activity channel get URL. Okay, so essentially what this is doing is, by overriding this item click listener here, which, to give you guys reference, it's this item click listener here when we click on an individual. That's on item long click. But if we were to do a short click, we now are implementing our own custom activity. And essentially when you go into this, you need to implement your own custom activity. You need to obviously extend the channel activity and implement the methods as required. But essentially this is how you can add a little bit more customization. You're now specifying if you want to show a different type of message dialogue and you don't want to generically launch a camera activity. Maybe you have different use cases, or maybe you don't even want your users to send messages or files or anything like that. You can override that and implement your own here. And, as you can see right here, this method call is, set input left button click listener, which is this guy right here. You can customize that and change that out to whatever you want. The nice thing is, like, when you're building this channel fragment here, we're going to go down to here to this custom channel fragment. This is where I get asked a lot of questions about customization within the UI kit. And it's kind of something that we're very happy and proud to announce and to like let people kind of explore and play with is all this customization around being able to add metadata to messages going out, being able to specify translation targets. If you guys have a use case where you need messages to be translated when they're being sent out, this stuff is all very easily. You literally would just specify an array list of strings that you want to specify, like ES for Spanish or whatever languages you guys want to use. You can specify translation target languages. You can add metadata. You can add mentioned users or mentioned types. Or you can even specify individual custom types on the individual message. And this is where I'm saying, where I said earlier, if you have your own individual custom type on a message, your own type of message that's kind of like proprietary or known only to your real use case, you can create messages that are entirely unique to your own experience. And what you do is, in the individual channel activity, you want to go ahead and specify, you want to set a custom adapter. And in this custom adapter, you'd want to handle the different view types that are being passed in for individual messages, which will allow you to easily, I didn't build out my custom adapter, but you easily could implement your own custom adapter. But essentially, you could use this to swap in and out your own custom views for sending and receiving messages, which is kind of the nice thing. And I'm not going to spend too much more time talking about all the additional customization that you have that you can extend. I haven't implemented the rest of this, but I wanted to showcase to you guys that there is an additional layer of complexity, if you want, for the UI kit. And again, the thing kind of want to reiterate is the UI kit is by design meant to be able to fit into your product and launch as quickly as possible. The whole point of building chat in minutes, we've already done that. We did that in the first 10 to 15 minutes of implementation. Took us no time at all to build out the entirety of chat, from push notification, or not push, but from read receipts, delivery receipts, file messaging, all the type of event handlers, all that kind of stuff was literally built out within minutes. And that's what we kind of want to reiterate is, if you wanted that to be your stopping point, you definitely could, and you would have a world-class chat experience. But if you wanted to go a step beyond, maybe you want to add a little bit more customization, the nice thing is it's kind of iterative. It's not an all or nothing type of a thing, which is what, historically it used to be an all or nothing thing for when you were building with the core SDK, where it's you either had to build out everything by yourself or you had nothing. Now you can have everything, but you can also go a lot more with the UI kit, where you can add that additional customization that maybe you wanted to leverage with the core SDK. So this is just kind of some stuff that I'm excited about sharing with you guys. And I really would challenge you guys to go explore this. Our own sample app that we have on our docs.sendbird.com page shows way more customization, shows you how you can implement your own adapters, and actually showcases implementing custom adapters. But again, for the sake of this webinar or this hands-on lab, I wasn't going to do all of that work, or we'd be here for quite a while. But I really want to challenge you guys to go and explore all this stuff on your own, because there is a great deal of customization that you can do with this. And it really is a world-class product. It'll make your chat experience truly seamless and wonderful, and it'll provide a great experience for both you as a developer and for your customers.